Thank you. It's been half a century of roller coaster emotions, and I have felt the intensity of those emotions today and at this conference. So much wonderful human potential and activism. The accomplishments of the people who have been on this stage before me, their devotion, their self-sacrifice, their genius in finding ways to make a difference moves me, as I'm sure it moves many, many of you. And that at the same time, much more gently than perhaps we deserve, we have been reminded of the extreme crises that we as a human race face on this planet. On the one hand, so much good being done. On the other hand, a situation that is getting more threatening every day. The warnings we have had for decades materializing into actual catastrophes in our time. What can we feel? What can we say? Well, I've also thought about this organization. Its accomplishments have really been quite magnificent. A century and more ago, in the 1890s, everybody in this country, of course, always I exaggerate, there's always somebody you can point to, but overwhelmingly the assumption, even of the organizers of that conference, was that, of course, we Western Christians are the norm. We have it right, but now we would like to be nice to some other people. And that conference began a change, a sea change of enormous importance. Today, I doubt that there is one Western Christian like myself here who simply thinks we, of course, are right and others are just inferior to us. And we represent tens of millions of American Christians who no longer think that way. I won't. Of course, the Parliament didn't make the change by itself, but it happens that at that conference, there was a great Hindu speaker, and the Christians there were astonished to find that there was a wisdom in India that was new to them. No one could think quite the same way after that. And we have actually changed. So I'm very grateful. But think of other things this Parliament has done. We've come to here together as representatives of many traditions. And I don't think there's any feeling about us that there are really fundamental tensions among us because we come from those traditions. There may be tensions among us, but it would be more about other issues than about whether we are Hindu or Mohammedan or Christian. I had the delightful experience of being in a group where a Jewish rabbi was explaining how out of his particular tradition and resources, he could come to the same place that the Pope had been when he promoted Laudato Si. And no one felt that was strange. Our whole attitude toward one another has changed dramatically, and I congratulate the Parliament. And I would like to say two things about this particular Parliament. I think that up until now, we have treated the indigenous people, of course, for many, many years, very condescendingly. But even when we got past that, somewhat in a token way, but no one could say the indigenous people have been tokens at this conference. And the glass ceiling that women can encounter so often is gone once and for all. We are therefore a people who have the potential of making a real difference in the world. We have laurels, but let us not rest on those laurels. Let us ask what, at this stage in the development of the world and of this Parliament, we can do. I believe we have a shared understanding of the crisis that the world faces. I think we know that it is at once a crisis for human beings and a crisis for nature, and a crisis for human beings as part of nature, and nature as being reconceived and re-destroyed, actually, by human beings. I think we all know that. And if we all know that, and if we are past the point of fighting each other and struggling against in a competitive way, what might we do in relationship to a crisis that is disproportionate to all the wonderful things that we have heard about at this conference? We'll have to rethink. We have to do something different from what we've been doing before. And we're ready to do it. Let me just say very briefly what I think we might do in some way, whether it's all of us, some of us. I think we might decide we are all working for the same goal, and we need to name it. One of the weaknesses of progressives in this world of the past decades has been that even if we more or less respected one another, nevertheless, each of us was working in a particular line, a particular cubbyhole, and we did not really support one another. So all of our efforts, politically speaking, can be dismissed as special interests. Saving the world is not a special interest. What could we do that might move in the direction of saving the world from the utter destruction that if we continue as we are going, we are bringing upon it? That's the question I think we can ask. We must ask. Would it be possible that we could all agree, perhaps with the Pope's expression, perhaps with some other? I myself like an expression that has come to us from the United Nations originally and has been introduced into the Constitution of China. That is the goal of becoming an ecological civilization. Now, we must understand that that does not just mean a civilization that is a little nicer to nature. It means a civilization that is radically different from any civilization this world has ever seen. And if we can share the goal and then say, that means we need an ecological agriculture, we need ecological education, we need ecological cities, we need ecological transformation of every sector, and then work out what would that mean? What would be an ecological political system? What would be an ecological education? None of us could work on everything. We'd all work on different things. We'd work on what we're working on now, but we would support one another in the transformation of the world in the next 10 years. Thank you.